What is up, Kips? I'm back with you. And I think I'm going to use this audio for Dungeons, Dragons, and Space Shuttles, so I'm going to say right now, welcome back to Dungeons, Dragons, and Space Shuttles. Tentatively. I wanted some audio to be able to get some stuff out, and also to put behind me doing some busy work on there. So yeah, I hope everybody's day's going well. Since the last time I recorded, my birthday is coming on, and I got absolutely no chance to record whatsoever. I'm kind of disappointed about it, but I'm figuring it out. So yeah, I have interesting, disturbing topic today. I'm wondering how much I really want to touch on this, and also probably this subject will come up again when I get the chance to record alongside somebody else, because it'll definitely be different getting somebody's outside reaction. So I was just on my way out of our yard from work the other day, and I had seen part of this scene going in to work as I drove by the same spot going in, but I did not get the vantage point that I got in the truck coming out, because I was going into work in my car, coming out of work inside of the semi-truck. So I was just driving out from work, and there was this black plastic bag. I don't know all the details to this, mind you. I don't know what was in the bag. I don't know if it had anything to do with what I saw. But I'll give you the first part, and then I'll go on to sort of maybe bring up some other stuff that I definitely would like feedback on this one. But there was this black plastic bag that was very heavily done up and misshapen. It was full of stuff, a little misshapen in kind of a weird way. But I don't know that was related to anything at all. But it was like one of those big black, hefty lawn and leaf bags, sort of size bag. I was like, maybe that just fell out of a pickup truck or something while they were going down the road. And it happens. People don't secure their stuff. That happens. But then I saw something extremely disturbing. Mainly because I've never seen it intact before. Lying on the ground, not very far from the plastic bag, was what very much looked viscerally even like a mostly intact, roughly human-sized brain, just sitting on the side of the road, not too far off from this plastic bag. It was just sitting there. I've never seen one outside of the skull and not in a sort of laboratory environment that was so intact. I hate to say I have seen brains on pavement before, but never like that. It looked like somebody just scooped it out of somebody's head and dropped it on the ground. And it was wet and stuff. I don't want to get DMC'd for graphic content, but it was so wet and stuff. If it wasn't a brain, I have no idea what it is, but it's very convincing. So anyway, that was extremely disturbing. Just to find that out on my way out of work. It was actually kind of a weird, uncanny moment for me, because coming up on it, I was like, there's something there. Coming a little closer, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it looks familiar. coming up a little closer, I'm like, what is that thing? I know what it is, but I just can't lay my finger on it. And it's only just after I passed it that it occurs to me, oh, that ain't good. And just as I'm having this thought, I see a cop car ahead of me, maybe half a mile, at a nearby roundabout coming toward me. And I was like, well, I'll watch him out of my mirror. And if he doesn't stop, I'll call. Turns out he stopped. That was what he was, coming to investigate. So regardless of whether it really was one or whether it just looked like one and somebody had just littered a plastic bag on the ground, yeah, the cops dealt with it. So I didn't end up having to make a call at all. But yeah, no, that's very disturbing just to see in a town that you know well enough. You've been there several times over the course of your life, and more often for me recently because of the location of our yard. It's kind of weird that something like that can just happen and just get left on the side of the road. I've unfortunately been privy to a few instances of being nearby when something happened to someone. A couple times were outside acts of violence, but 3 or 4 times I've been unlucky enough to be nearby when somebody decided to do something to themselves. So that's been unpleasant. But so I kind of wanted to go down the talking point of things that are kind of disturbing. Not necessarily like look everybody out, but the things that I feel like it's disturbing that can still happen, that people will look the other way to. And of course, the biggest thing among them is, people will see something like that body part or a whole body on the side of the road or in the woods. And not only will they not touch it, which actually is probably for the best that they don't, they won't call anyone. Nobody will do anything about it. It will just sit there and be left there, untouched, uninvestigated, unless somebody is called to go out and look at it. And even still, what disturbs me even more sometimes is that there's oftentimes where I've seen people leave behind a body, like an investigating team would leave behind a body. No coroner showed up that I know of. I mean, obviously they could have shown up later, but they'll just leave it behind a body. They're like, yep, that person's dead, and there's just nothing to be figured out here. And just leave. Now that's mostly with roadside stuff, and I suppose that there's only so much that they can do until somebody shows up and can extract it or whatever. But it's disturbing the fact that people are more worried about calling in something like that because they don't want to be implicated. It's kind of like this idea from Among Us about self-reporting, so people aren't suspicious of you. But the fact of the matter is, if something does get carried out investigation-wise, if you were provable to be anywhere nearby, you're going to be on the suspect list anyway. At least if you're open and sharing information, nobody has any extra reasons to be suspicious. When people don't want to answer a question because they have something that they don't want to share, it creates more suspicion. But yeah, it's just, it's kind of weird to me that human compassion has devolved to such a point where we're more worried about something happening to us than we are about the justice for that person, for their family, you know. And I'm no exception to that. I wish I could say I was, but more than once, I might have actually at least called, but more than once, I've definitely been like, I don't want anything to do with this, you know. I don't claim to be an exception to that particular rule at all, but it still bothers me. It's something that disturbs me quite a bit is the fact that we push and push upholding safety standards and stuff all the time, and yet right, left, and center, I see people, companies, police taking advantage of it everywhere. I mean, granted, for any of you guys who are international, this is in the United States, but I'll see people cutting corners. I'll see companies trying to do the very least that they can to make something safe. A lot of the times, just slapping a couple screws and bolts onto things and calling it good until it breaks again, which I don't think is okay. And then, I know one thing that really bothers me. I know a lot of people have got places to go, things to do, whatever. But, we invented speed limits for a reason, because otherwise everybody would be driving around the interstates at 300 miles an hour. Probably. I will get passed by literally everyone, and I'm doing speed limit. My car has a little bit of a janky speedometer. I actually have to have my little needle just past the line to set it at that particular speed, otherwise it will slow down a mile or two under that. So a lot of the times I'm probably doing 62 when I'm at 60, or at least according to my speedometer, it's probably about where 61 would be. But even still, I'll get past like I'm standing still going that speed in a quasi-urban environment, which is sad, and not just by cops, which happens quite frequently. I can't tell you how many times I've been passed by cops doing 90 miles an hour, no lights, no siren, in a 60, but also by all sorts of civilians. And there will be a cop sitting there, like, using the speed gun, and people will still be doing it, and they won't do anything about it. And it's kind of sad that, we build these rules, we make these laws, and nobody can be bothered to follow them or change them. If y'all want to go 70 miles an hour, where right now there's a 60 mile an hour sign, vote to change the law. But what's the point in having laws instead of anarchy if y'all are just going to do whatever you want anyway? Like, that's the reason society has structure. Because otherwise, we'll just all anarchy, waiting to happen. And that I find really sad. Something I've encountered with the companies being the least amount they can do for safety. I dealt with this on my last job, where basically they would do patch job after patch job after patch job, and only put the trailers in the shop if something broke or something went wrong. They took a little bit better care of the trucks, but aside from like the periodic services for like greasing and stuff, yeah, they didn't do those services almost never on time. Definitely didn't do it on mileage, and my last job was so bad about almost every trailer I picked up. The last year I worked there had something wrong with it. There was a light out. There was wiring that was corroding. Um, I got in big trouble with them because I had a light problem, and I wasn't at the yard. I was like at the next truck stop. It wasn't that far from the yard, and I had an issue where my lights went out because when I picked up the trailer, nobody was in yet. My lights weren't working, and I had to take it back to the yard, which at the time was a block away. It wasn't that far, and have them look at it. And I don't remember if they sent me back over to the truck stop or not. But anyway, I was there for 3 or 4 hours, and then at some point somebody was like, "Yeah, we gotta take the truck to Kenworth," because it was a Kenworth truck. I drive a Traitliner these days. But they're like, "We gotta take the truck over to Kenworth," which was on the other side of town. So they had to replace the whole wiring harness for the thing that leads from the engine to lines that hook up to the trailer, because for those of you who don't know, semi-trucks, at least in the United States, have what's called the pigtail line. It's the electrical line that goes and plugs into the trailers. Most of them are pretty universal. That way, in the event that something happens to the end, you can buy another one. But anyway, it had blown out the whole 7-way splitter. Like the connection was shot. So they had to basically take the truck and completely tear it apart. And that ended up taking time in such a way where actually I ended up getting sent home to take a week's vacation, because it was not going to get done. So I took my 2 or 3 days I had at that point and a week of vacation time at home. And when I came back, it still wasn't done the first day. It was supposed to be, and then I made it to the end of the parking lot before warning lights started going all over the place. So I didn't even turn out onto the road. I just backed my butt up. It's like, something's up here. Yeah. But that was not a very abnormal occurrence. I mean, with that only happened a couple of times in my whole time with them, and I was with them for almost 5 years. But little things like that would happen all the time. Just all the time, because they weren't taking good enough care of things. I see it in different companies in different ways, as an outsider and as an insider. But I will say with Walmart, at least, Walmart's trying to address its safety issues from the driver's point of view anyway. But like any company, there are problem people who make it difficult. There's a big divide between the people in the stores and the people in the trucks about what they're willing to do for safety. And the company's trying to remedy that, and it's not going that well. The hourly associates are not treated as well as the drivers, from everything I'm told, even though at least most of the people I've interacted with the company do their best to try to treat them as well as they can. But I think a lot of people resent the fact that the drivers make more. But you know what? We're doing more. Without the drivers, someone get there, so it comes with a little bit of an added thing. A lot of people were like, well, I would have a full-time job and I should be getting paid just as much, but a lot of people don't realize, at least in the United States and in Canada, drivers work, if they're working out their whole week's hours, the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs. The United States Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's outlines on hours of service allow us to work up to 70 hours in a week, 70, which is almost twice as much as the average full-time job. A lot of people don't think about it. Oh, you're just sitting behind the wheel driving for so many hours. They've had to instate the hours of service more than a lot else, because it was people getting into accidents because they were getting tired, because they were driving too much every day. It's easy to completely become exhausted, and it's not just about the driving. You've got to keep your eyes on everything. You've got to do a bunch of schedule your day so that you can show up at the right time, in the right place. There's a lot that goes on behind the wheel that people don't think about or don't realize, and they don't realize that it's hard on the body. Now, am I saying that there shouldn't be something done about paying people better so they care more about safety? No. But I don't think there will be anything done about it. It's just that. But yeah, the disturbing things that, I guess I can go into this sidetrack. I'm not going to name any names, but I know someone who's been going through something recently where they were in an abusive relationship with a habitual abuser. And they finally got out of the relationship, but because there is a small child involved that's related to the father, they can't fully cut them out of their life, and they're a very toxic person, and they're trying to continue that abuse. And it's very straining on the family, and honestly, it's kind of a headache for me too. But the judge who sat the trial for attempting to get him charged with domestic violence let him run free, which I think is completely wrong. And it actually came out that the reason why he was allowed to run free was because the judge himself was a habitual abuser at home. I think that's really screwed up. I know people are who people are, as far as anybody could be one. But the fact remains that it should be something that, if it's noticed, it shouldn't be looked the other way because somebody served a long time, like for judges, for instance. Because I've also had situations with people I know before where a sex offender was involved and was allowed to walk because the judge presiding, whatever, had been accused of being a sex offender when they were younger and not charged with it. And that goes into a whole different realm. What I really wanted to touch with that, but the fact that things like that can be looked the other way because they get discovered 20 years into a career. But with something like being a presiding judge, how long you serve should not matter. You don't get to preside over, at the very least, a case of that nature, because it gives bias. But it's also just sad that people who will do that to other people that they're supposed to care about, and don't just do it once, but do it regularly, it's not just sad, it's sickening. And, there's a lot of people who might say, well, you have pretty strong opinions about the... I do, because although I myself was not really victim to any of it, I was born into a relationship that was domestic violence and sexual offenderness to it. My biological father was a habitual abuser, an alcoholic, a drug user, and sexually assaulted my sister at the age of 3. So, yeah, I have strong opinions when it comes to those particular areas, and I think it's very disturbing. Which, remember, is the topic of this episode, that things like that are allowed to happen in our current society. Now, I know people are working on fixing it, but the fact is, how did we get that far? From a society that once upon a time cared a great deal about how it was treating its members, where did we lose the way? When did we start caring about private interests before personal compassion? That's disturbing, in fact, because at some point it happened. At some point, we reached a population size or something, or our mindset changed, and all of a sudden, neighbors didn't care who their neighbors were. Not really, aside from the way of the gossip and stuff. People don't go to their neighbor's door with a batch of cookies because they made too many anymore. There may be a few that do, but they're few and far between. I mean, COVID restrictions aside, let's leave COVID out of that for now. But simple fact is, where does human compassion go? It's very rare that I've seen lately, especially, and that's disturbing. Another thing that disturbs me is where do I want to touch on? I think is the lenience. This is going back into another area of bias. The lenience on people doing things in public that can be harmful to others. In my specific case, I have a problem because I am allergic to marijuana. I don't care that other people do it. It's your own bodies, it's your own brains, minds, whatever. By all means, do it in the privacy of your own home or in set-aside areas that are capable of being avoided. But I have had, especially lately, I have a neighbor that is, oh my gosh, I am so sick of this. We had new neighbors move in a short time ago, and already we're in a no smoking inside complex. Like, you're only supposed to smoke in a designated area, which is way out on the outside of the complex from our apartment. And this guy keeps soaking at it like 10 o'clock at night, which is usually just when I'm getting home, so it's like 10 o'clock at night. And if it's hot that day, then we just have to be miserably hot for half an hour or so while he's smoking it up upstairs. there's not really anything we can do about it. We've already talked to the landlord about it, and basically all they said was we had to catch him doing it. Which is kind of hard to do when they go home at 5, and he's not doing it until the middle of the night. So, but, it's difficult for me. I shouldn't be, just because I'm one in 100,000 people who have this allergy. I have met a few other people who have this allergy. For one, my sister has it, but also, I do know other people I'm not related to that have it. But, I shouldn't have to walk around in a gas mask because other people want to do it. If you want to do it on your own time, in your own space, that's fine. I don't care. Quite a few of my best friends take edibles because that's their preferred ingestion of choice. And it also permits them to come hang out with me without affecting me at all. Because it's not like I'm making out with them, or actually that wouldn't even probably convey it at all. I really don't care that people do it. It's just the fact that, especially in my personal experience and in my area, the vast majority of the population who do it heavily also don't seem to give a rat's ass about anybody else, or the fact that nobody wants to be smelling it. We've actually had a high turnover rate in our apartment complex lately because this isn't the first time that someone who lived near us is doing it, and we had so many problems with it that we had people yelling in the middle of the night, "Who the fuck is coking out there?" That sort of vernacular. Which I don't blame them, because I was kind of thinking the same thing, even though I was just trying to think about it. And I know some people would be like, well, wear a face mask. It doesn't help. For me, it doesn't help. Most of my allergy is inhalation-based, so it may help a small fraction. For one, the stuff smells god-awful. So that doesn't help anything. But for two, my brain just for two, some of my reaction is topical, and I'll start breaking out. In the first place, for some reason, that I start freaking out when I have this experience is the underside of my eyelids, which is extremely uncomfortable. It's basically like blinking with sandpaper. It's very, very uncomfortable. I know a couple of months ago I had the worst allergic reaction of my life, where to weed. I should preface, because I've had worse allergic reactions than things. Where I had stopped in a truck stop, and kitty corner to it on the other side of the roundabout is a cannabis shop. So, for some reason, and it's on tribal land too, so they can't really get in much trouble for doing anything to do. But because of that, or because of whatever, for some reason there was a bunch of it just in the air. I don't know if everybody was smoking it. I don't know if they were lighting a bonfire by the store. I really don't know. But anyway, so I show up, and I'm just, I'm stopping to get a snack and a couple of sodas on my way to work. Like I like the I don't even know what brand they are. We have a nice brand of Danish in the Pacific Northwest that I really like, that most of the gas stations and truck stops sell. So I was like, I'm going to pick up a Danish because I didn't have breakfast, and pick up a couple sodas and go on my way. Well, I made it about 5 miles down the road to the rest area that's between my place and work. And my reaction after leaving there was so bad that I was throwing up. I couldn't hardly see. I couldn't hardly breathe. And I was dry heaving for an hour and a half after I vacated my stomach before I was capable of calling for help, calling work, letting them know that I was turning tail and going home, because there was no way I was going to be capable of driving a truck in that condition. And I did end up getting Benadryl in my system when I got home, but it suggested not to drive for 6 hours after you do it. And you know, it's just one of those days where everything that could go wrong did go wrong with that. So I wheezed my way home. My airway did not close completely because I had, the chance to breathe air. For some reason, water helps my airway relax a little bit when it's like that. Since my reaction is mainly based on how much I inhale, it doesn't keep progressing if I vacate and start washing out the system. So, I mean, that was terrible. I've never thrown up from it before, and I've nearly died from it a couple of times. I had to come home from my job when I was working as a janitor at my church. They were renting it out during the week as space for a class of flaggers for construction to work out of, and somebody had gone into one of the bathrooms. And I had never understood the term smoking in bowl before, but if somebody took a medium-sized mixing bowl and smoked out that bathroom, that's what it was like. It was bad. I opened the door and was on fire. I did everything I could to ventilate everything. At the time, I did not realize how bad my allergy was. But it took me a while, but I got everything cleaned up. But I had nearly completely closed my airways to the point where if it hadn't been for the fact that I was breathing in the fresh air and drank almost a gallon of water before I headed home, because I had to walk at that point, I wasn't driving yet. That had it not been for that, I probably might have died, because I had no Benadryl on me, I had no EpiPen on me. Usually my work at the church took me about 2 to 3 hours, so I didn't feel the need to bring anything with me, except for whatever I needed for the trip there and back, like a flashlight or whatnot. And at the time I had a cell phone, so I didn't need a flashlight. And there were street lights for part of the way. But anyway, I ended up crawling the last quarter of a mile or so. Part of that was across the street. Thank goodness it was in the middle of the night, because I would not have made it otherwise. Because I wasn't getting enough oxygen. I didn't feel like I could walk. I fell over and I just started crawling home. Getting in was a chore. Getting the Benadryl was even more so, and even then I was choking on it trying to get it down. And I slept for 2 days after that happened. Might have been up for a few minutes at a time, every couple of hours, but I spent 20 of the next hours, the next 48 hours, at least, completely unconscious. And the rest of the time not in a very great state. shit. Your body has to purge that stuff when it gets into your system. I was all sorts of broken out. Luckily, my grandma was still alive. She's a nurse, so she was able to do something for me. Luckily, that was actually before her accident, so she was actually capable of her dementia hadn't set in yet, so she could remember things, she knew what to do, but it wasn't pleasant at all. Now, we can talk about allergies a different time, in a more detailed thing on it, probably on a multi-person rambling. I know I've been for a while. For a multi-person episode. I keep forgetting this is not an episode of the podcast, this is for DDSS. But I'll tell another story sometime about the time I died. We will get into that at some point. Hopefully I get a chance to record this with proper live gameplay this time. Sometime soon. But yeah, I've probably rambled on long enough. I know that I'm just going to be doing busy work behind this, probably claiming some quests, building some rails, because that's kind of something I've been doing right now, digging my little quarry, which is another thing I've been doing right now, all that kind of fun shit. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do, make sure to slap by the like button, lets me know that you did. Hopefully I'll be able to get something up on Patreon soon. That reminds me, don't forget to support the channel and everything I do over on Patreon, patreon.com/KibsNLP. Please give me some feedback. Just try to be constructive and polite. If you come at me with big FUs, I might not read them. I might just delete them. But otherwise, I'd love to hear feedback. All this fun shit. Right now, I've got a thing going on Streamlabs. I'm looking into upgrading my PC, and getting a proper beast computer to be able to do more stuff. So we currently have a donation goal. I don't remember what I set it at, which is just to help me upgrade. And the intent is that when we reach that goal, the money that goes into that goal will be going to pay part of me getting a new computer and equipment. Anyway, I will catch you guys later. Don't let's go. I'm showing out. I'll see you. Peace!